Well, if you're looking at this and you're going, wait a second, that's not a Model 27 from 1908. That looks more like maybe a Slant-O-Matic. Well, I can't fool you guys because you're so doggone smart. This is, in fact, a Singer 401A from 1961, and it belongs to my friend Sibel from the great state of New York, specifically Brooklyn, New York, which is really cool. And that's also the neighborhood that Bill O'Rourke and I believe also Emma hails from originally. There may be some other New Yorkers as well watching this right now. If you are, step out of the shadows and make yourself known in the chat so that we can go, hey, yo, what's up? But the reason I'm showing this to you instead of opening with the focus on the Model 27 that I've taken literally from being a beast to a beauty. This one also had a lot of challenges, if you remember. The foot controller was blazing red on fire. It had other challenges where the motor had no energy at all. It was just like dead. It was barely turning over no matter what I tried to do on the spot just to do some intervenes. You know, if it was a little bit sticky or something, I kind of hit it with a hair dryer, hit it with some lubricant, still didn't solve the problem. Well, once this machine is premiered, you'll see what some of the issues were in the motor. But that's the past. And now I'm excited to say to you, this is going to be live streamed, this 401A from 1961, Thursday evening. So if you somehow catch it, check it out, get involved. If you don't, rewind and go back and watch it because it's going to be available after the live stream. But I got to show you what I've done to this motor. Oh, I got to show you what I've done to this motor. It's off the hook. It's off the hook. I'll even pause my Kazoom music, which, you know what? Even if the President of the United States walked in, I wouldn't pause this song for him. Nope, I wouldn't. But I will for you guys. So hold on a second. If I don't knock over the tripod. Pause. Okay. So this motor, the last time I showed it to y'all, it was cranking over pretty much like right about like this. Something like that. Sort of kind of like that. And after a little bit of workshop magic, make sure your tray tables are in the up position and that your seat is no longer reclined because we're getting ready to take off. Yes, we are. So it's so much fun to get a machine back to life after it was nearly dead and had so many challenges facing it. This 401A also has a really cool story that I will share during that live stream that Sibel told me about, which really, I mean, just sets it apart as one of those providential machines that was just meant to come to Sibel. It was just meant to happen. And you'll understand more of what I mean when you watch that live stream. Or if you can't make it for whatever reason, when you go back and you watch that video of the live stream, you're going to be like, wow, what a cool story. But we're not here to talk about this 401A, but I had to show it to you nonetheless so you could see that that machine is just excited. Its bobbin is tapping as it's getting ready for that live stream to be able to show what she can do now. Yeah. On the other workbench, behind this partition dramatically, is the machine that came to the workshop. And I'll give you a little bit of a backstory on it. Again, it's a Model 27. And it came from the great state of Texas, specifically from Shiner, Texas. S-H-I-N-E-R. If you've never heard of Shiner, Texas before, would you do me a big favor right now during this premiere and look it up, Google it real quick, Shiner, Texas, S-H-I-N-E-R. and post something in the chat that's interesting about that community. Something really cool, because that's where Ross is from. And Ross had a customer come to him, and the customer had this Model 27 that was, well, you're going to see it in a little bit on Facebook. The shots that I posted some time ago on Facebook. It had lots of challenges. Let's just leave it like that. But as Ross was doing some research and due diligence to find out, well, I'm a woodworker, is what he is. He's a master wood craftsman. And he knew that he could handle the cabinet side for this customer, but he wasn't comfortable, didn't have the expertise to manage the machine side. So he starts looking around the internet, and again and again and again and again and again, all over the place, this Scott guy from Wisconsin keeps popping up, popping up, popping up, popping up, popping up. He reaches out by phone. We have a really good conversation. Goes back to the customer, do some more follow-up. Things kind of go back and forth a little bit. Finally, he comes back and he goes, "We want you. We want you." And so he ended up shipping this machine to the workshop. When I unboxed it, it was like, wow, this is going to be a project. And you'll see what I mean when we look at the Facebook shots in just a few seconds. But we're well beyond that now. We're at the point now where I can actually say this is a celebration. This machine has been aesthetically, from a rust mitigation standpoint, from everything that it needed a lot. It's ready to finally do its dance. It's finally ready to do its dance at this premiere. So let's first of all see where we started, and then we can see where we've arrived to now. And this particular machine, I already told you, is from 1908. If you want to look it up, I think I've got the serial number. Well, I'll tell you what, when we get over to the machine, I'll probably zero in on the serial number, and you can look up the specific birth date and post it in the chat if you're willing to do that for me. I was just looking to see if I had it written down somewhere else so I could give it to you in advance, but it doesn't look like I did. But I'll share with you before we go too much further. I'm going to go over to the computer now. I'll share with you before we go too much further that the Model 27 dates all the way back to the 1800s. Not this particular one that we have. The particular one that we have, again, is from 1908. But the 27s were one of the earliest models that Singer put out. I mean, way, way back in the 1880s, they came on the scene. And they were so much loved that they stayed between the Model 27 and then later the 127 that followed it. It was, those two machines were on the scene from the 1880s until about the 1960s. You want to talk about a track record. So it gives you an understanding and appreciation for how phenomenal this machine is that Ross sent to the workshop on behalf of his customer that he's doing the cabinet for. So between our combined efforts, they're going to get world-class treatment from a master woodworker and a master sewing machine restorer. That's me, in case you didn't connect the dots, yeah, okay. So, but let me put on Kazoo again, because I just love this song. You guys know I love this song. I might even jam a little bit, you never know. But I'm going to show you the opening shot. Come on. What did I do? Did I break it? No, not that one. This one. Yes. All right, we're going to start looking at this machine so you can understand the pilgrimage that we took after I shut off this light. I've asked you guys this before, but I know we got some kazoo players out there that played kazoo when they were in school, right? It was like a mandatory thing. You had to play kazoo. It was like, arithmetic almost. but a lot more fun. Yeah. So looking at the faceplate, it kind of gives you an idea of where we started with this machine, right? Sort of, kind of. Rust throughout this machine everywhere you looked. And I'm not going to gab a lot about these pictures. I'm going to kind of click through them. Distant shot. Decaling is all but absent. And where it's absent, there's rust. Everywhere. I can't resist it anymore. Hold on. All right, that's enough. And I'll just point out here real quick, what you can see is the remnants of what's referred to as the gingerbread decal pattern that Singer developed. It's also called the Tiffany pattern. And from an ornamental standpoint, one of the prettiest decal patterns that Singer ever developed. It rivals even the red eye decal pattern that everyone just, as soon as they see a red eye, they're like, ah! But once they see a Tiffany gingerbread decal pattern on a machine, even if it's tattered, even if it's worn down and missing a lot, they're just like, oh my gosh, that is just absolutely crazy. What a perfect place to stop. And the music ended right there. I didn't even plan that. I wish I could take credit for planning that. So you can't read it probably real well. I'll come all the way out to here so you can read it more easily. But what I've started doing, and most of you that follow me faithfully, you're already like, Scott, we already know this. But we have new people at premieres all the time, new folks that kind of pop in to check things out. And they don't understand this if all of a sudden they see a picture like this pop up. But I do it just to kind of mix it up a little bit and make it fun. Because when you're scrolling through pictures, as fascinating as they are, when you look at the starting point of a machine before it goes through my restorative process, you're like, it's really cool. But if you have something just totally random like this that pops up, it just gives you a giggle factor. It's just fun. And I love fun. So here you've got this huge German Shepherd and this little kitty cat. And if you can't read the caption, if you're on a small phone or something like that, at the top of it, it says, it was that big dog over there, as the little kitten is pointing with its little paw. You can see that. And he says, he called me mean names. So, yeah, dogs look out for cats, cats look out for dogs. And that dog now is gonna, he's gonna punch the card of that other dog and say, don't mess with my kitty. Don't mess with my kitty. Don't do it. Yeah. So, all right, I'm looking for my music. It's over here somewhere. There we go. Let me just look at the body of that machine. It's just like, blah. I love the balance wheel on the Model 27s. Again, they came on the scene in the 1880s, and it is the meatiest balance wheel that you will ever touch. If you get a Model 27, you're going to be like, man, I thought that the spoked wheels were like massive, and then you see one of these, and it's like it's off the hook. It's just crazy. Look at it from the side. I mean, that's probably like 50% of the weight of the machine. It's the balance wheel. I'm exaggerating a little bit. Yeah. Good luck reading that serial plate, huh? But you can see from that serial plate, that is indicative of the rest of the machine, inside and out. Bottom of the machine is what we're looking at now, and rust everywhere. Rust and varnishing. And varnishing is not patina. I've talked about that before in other premieres and live streams. Varnishing is debilitating to a machine. It's not just a matter of, oh, look at it, it's kind of a chocolate color. It's sticky, it's gummy, it basically chokes the life out of the machine. So that's why I always try to mitigate that throughout the machine when I see that, because it's going to slow the machine down. Now, all of a sudden, we've left the workshop and we're outside of the workshop, because what I have assessed that I'm going to need to do is I'm going to have to take this machine all the way down to bare metal. There are sometimes opportunities where I can condition and I can rough up the finish and I can prepare it to receive new paint, and it'll turn out gorgeous. I've done that numerous times with restorations, but sometimes the rust is so deep into the machine and pitted all the way down into the metal that you've got to get everything off the machine. You got to make it naked. I'm sorry I said naked. I said it on this channel. If one of the moderators wants to put me in the penalty box for saying the word naked, I'm okay with that. I'll take my lumps, okay? But sometimes you just got to take it all the way down to bare metal, because then as I build that machine back up, I'm going to have a perfect surface to work with, instead of having to try to navigate the waters of the pitting and all the other factors that come with excessive rust just eating a machine up like this one was. Again, it's from 1908. So if you didn't do the math yet, that's going to make it right around, 113 years old, right? And once we look up the full birthday, you'll see that this machine this summer is going to have another birthday. And then it'll be 114 years old. So yeah, it's been sitting around a long time. And depending on where a machine is stored, it can just really hurt a machine big time. All right, a little bit more music as we're watching this. So what I use for stripping a machine down is a combination of wire brushes, but wire brushes that are not going to scratch the machine surface. Brass and copper are wonderful wire brushes to use on vintage sewing machines, and you'll see some of that. Also, I have to remove all the hardware, partly because, number one, I don't want to paint that, obviously, but also it has to be completely cleaned up, conditioned, and restored because of all the rust. And here I'm just going to kind of click through these. You'll see me piece by piece by piece take everything off of the machine, getting it all the way down to its birthday suit, and then stripping off all of that old chipped brittle paint and rust, and getting a nice solid surface that I can build from. I'll just point here, this is a chrome plate. It's like a maintenance access for the front of the machine. It's on the 27s, it's on the 127s, it's on the 128s. And when the rust is as bad as this, it even eats into that chrome as well. That's kind of what you're seeing there. All rust all the way up the shafts. I'll just point out the badge mark here, even that, and the stitch length adjuster knob, combination of rust and even mold on the badge mark. There's mold on there if you look at it closely. And the bobbin winding assembly on this machine has so many intricate parts that have to do their job to be able to work properly. And it was literally frozen stiff with rust and varnishing. All the parts coming off. Now I believe that's the opening shot there. We started on the faceplate, but it's worth showing it to you again just so you can appreciate where we started with this machine, where I started with the machine. Just double checking that we've covered this. Here I'm starting to work on that faceplate. You can see this side has not been touched. This side on the right has been touched. It's not there yet, it's not even close. But already you can see some of that greatness starting to peek back through again. I'm glad I didn't click off of this. Some of these are shots we haven't seen yet. Here I'm starting to tear apart the upper tension, which if you look at that upper tension very closely, it's a wreck, right? But the take-up spring over here has also been snapped off as well. So that's a part that's going to have to be sourced and installed once the restore is complete. So many challenges. And this little piece down here on the bottom right side is going to be attached to the table that Ross is restoring. That's going to be part of the bobbin winding system. And on the left is a very old leather belt that was sent with the machine, but I sourced a brand new one, all leather belt, because this is going to be set up as a treadle machine by the customer. Or I should say by Ross for the customer. Here you can just see more of the machine there. Pretty sure we're going to go full circle here. And if you're brand new to VSM, this space right here is the raceway area. This works with a vibrating shuttle system, and it moves from front to back very rapidly in the sewing process to complete the sewing process. And these slide plates here are what cover that area up during the sewing process. And I ended up restoring and replacing both slide plates because they were so far gone. And when I got done with the first one, it wouldn't match the other one, so then I had to kind of start from square one. But you can see all the pitting of the rust there. Yeah, we went full circle, so I'm going to click off of this one. So this is part of the upper tension as well, and I mean the picture speaks 1,000 words, right? Even on the upper tension, which is a chromed piece, the rust had just started to eat it alive. There I am. Safety first. I've got my safety glasses on. What do you think? Yeah. All the parts are being lined up so I don't lose anything. Starting to hit that paint hard now, but again, I'm using a brass copper type brush so that it's removing the paint, but it's doing it in a gentle way so it doesn't end up gouging or creating scratching that could show through. Layer by layer by layer. Layer by layer by layer by layer. Takes about 2 hours, depending on how soft the paint is. The ambient temperature. I want to say it was in the 60s that day, upper 50s, 60s. So it was a longer process. Took about 2.5 hours. If you can't read that, it says, dogs chase me because they are jealous that I get to poop in the house. Yeah. I'm sure somebody laughed at that. Probably the cats. Now this is part of the jewelry that goes on the back of the machine. It's not jewelry right now. There you can see the coloring of that brush in contrast with these brushes down here that are also a softened alloy to prevent scratching, but not quite as soft as this. Layer by layer. You can see I've actually torn through my glove there. Starting to really make a dent in it now. Not a literal dent, but as far as getting all the layers off. Layer by layer by layer. And I've said it, and I really am going to do it someday, is someday in the future I'm going to take a really nice, either class 66, maybe a 27 or a 127, or maybe even a 128 3/4 size machine, and I'm going to strip it all the way down to its birthday suit, and then I'm going to clear coat it. So it's not going to have any paint on it whatsoever. I had a couple people that said that would really be a cool idea, and I would call that machine a one-off silver bullet. You see all the different brushes that I use, and I use them in a specific sequence when I'm taking that finish off. That beautiful balance wheel. See, my glove has gotten all torn because as you're working around the machine like that, there's a lot of rough spots on it. Plus, occasionally you get too close to the brush as it's spinning and then it cuts through your glove very quickly. Sometimes your skin. Look at the inside of that stop action clutch. It is just deep, riddled with rust. See the speed of that drill, even though it's an older vintage style drill. It's a metal case drill. I think it was Ed down in oh, I apologize, Ed. I don't remember what state you're from. But anyway, Ed had said, I noticed right away that that was a steel case drill. Those things run forever. They are just almost bulletproof. But as you're working around with this type of brush to mitigate the rust and the paint, this medallion is a lot softer alloy, and you got to be really, really careful when you're navigating the waters around there. Otherwise, you can do a lot of damage real quick. Layer by layer by layer by layer. And you go through a lot of rubber gloves too. Starting to get real close. Can you see that? And notice as well, you can actually read the serial plate down. rust. That's the after. Look at that up there. Compared to that. All the way up into the pillar rust as well. See that? There's a naked machine right there. Cover the eyes of the grandchildren and the kids. I just think it's so cool getting all the way down to that cast nakedness. It's so cool. Look at that badge mark now too. It's starting to really come back. That's such a focus point, or I should say such a focal point on the machines, that that really has to be standing tall and looking good. Excuse me. That really has to be standing tall and looking good. Otherwise, it takes away from any other restorative efforts you make on the machine. Oh, there we can see the serial plate. At least I can. It's, if you want to write it down real quick, where I can actually zero in on it, and then you can look up the specific birth date for this machine that Ross sent me from Texas. Give me the full birth date, if you'd be so kind. We'll lock it in right there so you can write it down. If one of the moderators would type it into the chat as well, that would be awesome. And that way, if someone doesn't have something to write with, they can look at the chat and then maybe open up another window on their device and look it up that way. All right, I'm going to change the shot again. So if you didn't get it, one of the moderators will write that down. Look at the beauty of that badge mark just above it, starting to really peek its way through. Gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. Even at this stage, I can look at this and go, I can start to see the greatness already. Getting so close. Now there's that stop action. No, I'm sorry, that's not the stop action. That's the rear plate. The eye candy that goes on the back of the machine. That's what we're looking at right now. It's just encrusted. You can see that. I'm going to put on some more music. It's just literally encrusted with rust, varnishing, and God knows what else. Look at that faceplate. The left side I've started to make an impact. Right side is how the rest of the plate was. And I'll go back to that real quick and just mention something for you do-it-yourself folks. When you're dealing with a plate like this, realize that the finish of chrome on it is thousandths of an inch thick, less than thousandths of an inch thick. So as you're restoring it and mitigating the rust, the varnishing, and everything else, you've got to do it in real gentle stages. Otherwise, you're going to remove that chrome. And the process of re-chroming something is very tedious work. And you don't want to have to do that if you don't have to. There's our bobbin winding assembly, part of it. Starting to make a dent in that step by step. I just realized my screen is pointing the wrong way. And now I've cleaned off the surface, because there's a obviously when you strip a machine like this, there's a real fine powder that gets all over the machine. So after getting it nice cleaned off, combination of air compressor and wiping it down, it's now back in the workshop. And I believe that was our starting point. Yep. That just tells the whole story right there, doesn't it? It just tells the whole story. So what I'm going to give you a glimpse of next, before we actually look at this finished product, this machine that I'm going to be sending back to Shiner, Texas, to Ross, I'm going to show you some of the work that I did in the paint shop in getting those decals into place. Really, really tedious, time sensitive as well. There it is. You didn't want to pop up right away. So at this point, what you're looking at, number one, we're 60 miles away from the workshop, down around Neenah, Wisconsin. And what I've done at this point is, obviously I've taken the machine into the paint shop. I've added multiple layers of commercial grade Singer matched paint, which is a combination of black and blue, and don't ask me what the ratio is, because it's like a family recipe secret. And now I've laid down a real light mist of clear coat over it to make that surface a little bit more sticky. And now I've gone through and I've hand cut all of the decals that I prepared. And now I'm getting those decals placed specifically onto the machine where they would have been placed when this machine left the factory back in 1908. It's got to be just right. It's got to be just right. So let's take a look at some more of these pictures. I'll put on some music and I'll just kind of scroll through them. And once a machine is painted and clear coated, new decals, all that good stuff, there's a lot of work when the machine gets back into the workshop, because no matter how well I mask a machine, inevitably, with the mist of paint and clear coat being so fine, I mean ridiculously fine, it'll creep into every crack that I miss somehow as I'm putting down the masking tape, the painter's tape, and then I have to scrape all that off, because otherwise it'll make the machine stiff, and it won't turn nicely. Plus, I won't be able to fit those long plates on there either. You see what I'm saying as you look at that centerpiece decal on the machine for the gingerbread or the Tiffany pattern. It's just spectacular, isn't it? Now you notice this is another decal that I'm getting into position. I use a series of paintbrushes to manipulate and to position and to flatten the decal once I get into the position. And you got to move real quickly, because right now it's already starting to set and there's wrinkles. See the wrinkles in there? And those will be permanent if I don't get it in place and get it smoothed out very, very rapidly. You got to move like lightning, but you have to move very, very carefully too. That's right above the needle bar in that. That's another decal that I've just gotten into position. And again, I use, to cut these out, once I prepare the decals, I cut them out with a combination of X-Acto knives and surgical scissors. And I'll show you what my surgical scissors look like if you've never seen them before. These are actually used in operatories for surgeries and such. Kind of come into a package like this. And they are ridiculously razor sharp and pinpoint. So they're just perfect for cutting out decal patterns once I've gotten them ready. Something random again popping in. Youngsters probably never saw one of these. Share if you know what it is. So type in the chat right now if you know what that is and what it was used for back in the day. And you know, you're going to get an A in the class for the day and some major kudos from myself and the moderating team. Type in the chat if you know what that is and what it was used for. Continue to get all the decals into place. Very tedious, time-sensitive process. Some of the bed decals that are in two pieces when I put them into place. Give you an idea, there they are waiting to go on. And they are like rice paper, super thin, so very difficult to handle and have a tendency, if you don't lay them down properly, they'll fold underneath each other and they stick, and it's nearly impossible then to get it to lay out again. So part of the reason very few people take on restorations like this. I know I gained a couple of extra gray hairs doing it. And all of these paintbrushes are different sizes depending on what I'm trying to do with the decal placement. And there's another fun little post that I kind of just slid in there with all the other pictures. Just a cute picture of a little boy and a little girl, and you can see the little boy is kind of impressing this girl with his old phonograph. Any of you have a little phonograph like that when you were growing up back in the day? And then the caption says, "Play that funky music, white boy." And there's nothing racial about that. That's from a song, obviously, and it's just a playful little image there. So there I'm getting the decal in the position on the front of the pillar. And again, look at that badge mark now compared to where it started. Just absolutely night and day. Night and day. But the Tiffany gingerbread pattern is really one of those, when you talk to some people that have a lot of machines, let's say they have 27s, 127s, 128s, inevitably they say, boy, I would love to have a machine with this decal pattern on it. And it's evident why. It's just absolutely spectacular. And that's right by the spool pin on top of the machine. And those are two separate decals that you have to piece together and position just perfectly. And again, you've got to act carefully but decisively and with urgency. Otherwise, the the decals, when I prepare them, they've got a sticky back, kind of a glue base, and they'll start to fuse to uh, that surface of the machine. And good luck trying to get them off without damaging them. Again, the decals themselves, when they go into position, are like rice paper. They're that thin, and they can tear, they can get damaged very easily. Back of the machine, oh, actually the front of the machine, excuse me. Wait a second. No, that is the back of the machine. Yeah, back of the machine again, we're looking at it from a different angle. And usually on the back of the machines, the decal pattern is going to be a lot more plain Jane, a lot more simplistic, a lot more basic. Not with the Tiffany pattern. The back is just as ornate with the Singer branding mark as the front is. Just as ornate. And then we're looking at the back of, near the presser foot bar on the rear of the machine, an equally ornate decal has to go right there. And you've got to navigate around that space very carefully because there's some hardware with the presser foot lever that has to be able to go up and down and clear as you're using the machine. Even though on this model the presser foot bar does not release the tension, there's an apparatus built into the upper tension that allows you to do that. But still, for removing the material in that, you still have to raise the presser foot nonetheless. Really coming together nicely now. You can just see the beauty of that pattern coming together. And this is nothing more than almost like a little ice pick. And I use it when I'm putting the decals into place, especially on top of the machine, near the spool pin, because you have to slide them over that as you get them into place. Now I'd like to tell you that this is a secret sauce right here, or that we're making something in the kitchen, but we're not. When you're putting these decals into place, you've got to use a balanced ratio of basically glass cleaner and warm water. Ideally, the water should be somewhere between 70 to 80 degrees. And the problem when you're working in the paint shop is there's a lot of air movement. It's not heated as well as, say, your home. And so you have to constantly be swapping the water out and warming the water up again and adding more of the glass cleaner and keeping that ratio balanced. You don't want to make it too concentrated because then the bubbles will build up underneath the decal and will actually cause it to separate as you're putting the clear coat over it. So there's some science in it, but I've done it so many times. You know, it's kind of like when you're working in your kitchen and you've done a recipe a million times. You really don't take out the measuring cups anymore. You just measure it mentally, and you know that you're gonna nail it. You know. Getting ready to put the decaling on the rear of the pillar now. And part of it is getting that surface nice and slick and moist, so as you're positioning that decal, you can get it to the proper alignment before it starts to set. Soaking that decal in there, and then it will separate from the glue back so you can position it on the machine. There's the bottom part of it on the rear of the pillar. And there's the upper portion. And again, those are two separate pieces. And you've got to get them positioned just perfectly. Vertical alignment, horizontal alignment, and also the alignment in relation to the decal base that's on the bottom there. It's a lot of work. I mean, there's no beating around the bush. It's a lot of work. It's coming together nicely though, isn't it? And as tedious as this is, you know what's even more tedious than this? is once I let this dry and set for about 72 hours after this process has been done, and then it's ready to be clear coated, and then I have to leave it another 72 hours once the clear coating is done, bringing it then back to the workshop and putting all of the hardware that's been restored back onto the machine without scratching the machine. You want to talk pins and needles? It is nerve-wracking. And when I get that last piece of hardware on the machine in place, you just breathe a huge sigh of relief. You really do. Think about the way the machine looked and what it's starting to look like now. And I haven't even done the final clear coating on that finish yet. It has a clear coated base, so it's stickier, like I said, so that I can put the decals and they're going to stay in position and be more stable. But it hasn't even received its final stages of clear coat yet, and it's already looking like, are you kidding me? Wow. Absolutely spectacular. Look at that starting to come together. Just like a beautiful painting. Just like a beautiful painting. It's just like, wow. Wow. Look at it now. That's all but complete. It doesn't have any of the hardware on, but you're looking at, I believe, well, actually I'm looking at one more piece that I might not have on there. Unless that's just the backing. I think that's just the backing. So we've got the Singer across the top and everything, and that's another one that's really challenging to position properly. But that becomes then a living legacy of my work, and then combine it with Ross's master wood craftsmanship, and you put those two together, and we're looking at another machine that could easily land in the Smithsonian. But I don't think the owners will sign up for that. They're going to keep this in their family after making the investment that they did for my work and for Ross's work as well. Look at that frontal shot. It's just like, wow, shebang. I love it. Just utterly spectacular, isn't it? Put on a little bit more music for us. You know, the only thing that I like better about the red eye decal pattern is that it's got color. It's got color in it. But this is so spectacular and ornamental. It gives you the wow factor with nothing other than the base color that it has. Look at that. The Beatles thing there, I love it. Had to do it. Had to do it. And that's the belt cover that goes over near the balance wheel. That's our beginning right there, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, that's our beginning. We've gone full circle. Well, I hope you enjoyed that journey, because it really gives you, I hope it gives you an appreciation for the amount of work that goes into a full restore of a machine like this that arrives with so many challenges. And now at last, with your patience, we get a chance to see what the machine looks like now. After I grab some water. Well, this is hardly like a cinematic type, exciting, dramatic, unveiling type music, but use your imagination. Yeah. Or I could always skip it too. I could do that, couldn't I? Ah. I know. Yeah, this is fun. I like this. All right, you ready? Yeah, that's the way it's supposed to look. Yeah, right there. There it is. Hey! It's fun to get to this point, isn't it? Yes, it is. Let me come off the tripod real quick and I'll just kind of walk you around the machine real quick. And then guess what? Even though this is set up as a treadle, I'm still going to stitch something off for you and turn it with my finger like I've done in the past. Oh, come on. Don't end the song right there. It's okay. This is a good one, too. What do you think, Dr. Singer? Yeah, she's a looker, isn't she? Well, there you go. Let's do some sewing on this machine now, shall we? Yeah. Let's do a little bit of sewing. I'm not going to do a ton. Just enough. Single layer of Italian leather we'll start with. Now I'm going to set it right here for a second. I'm going to show you something. I wasn't holding the thread when we launched, and it creates a little bit of a mess on the bottom. I'll have to clean that up. So when we get to this point, I raised my presser foot already. You can see that. But the tension still is not off. So on this machine, go right about there. To release the tension like you normally would get because of the upper tension pin displacing the discs so that you can pull the material out, you have to push this little tab right here. Actually push it in, and then you can remove and pull the thread. Then as soon as you let it go, the tension is back on again. And the setup I have on this machine right now is a size 90-14 universal Schmetz needle, and then I have just real basic thread on it. I don't have anything fancy. See, I didn't have a good grip on the thread when I launched, and so it kind of sewed over the thread. Oh, booger. And end up undoing some of my own stitching, but that's okay. Next time I'll hold on to it. That would be a wise thing to do. There we go. Sort of got it. Almost. Okay, so I'll zoom in on these stitches and I'll show what we have. at that top edge. It gives you an idea of the thickness of this Italian leather. Right around 4 ounces of leather. Overall, a really good looking stitch. Totality of the stitching, spot on. I love the look of that. Let's turn over and look at the lock stitch. Beautiful stitching. Gorgeous. So that's our first official sew-off on this fully restored 1908 Model 27. Let's do some more. I'll throw that to the back as a definite pass. I did not test this off camera, but I think I'll do genuine elk hide. All right, this time I'll stay out a little bit wider so you can see me actually turning the machine. Sleeves are going up. Imagine how much easier this would be in a treadle table, huh? So again, you're going to push this so you can advance the thread. Release it. See, I did a better job that time of holding the thread. When you initially launch with a long shuttle, a vibrating shuttle like this, you want to hold onto those threads during the initial, say, 1 to 3 stitches. Just kind of get it into a nice sync, and then you can let go of that thread after that. When I zoom in, and I want to show you the thickness of this genuine elk hide as well. It's going to be about 4 or 5 ounces thick, which equates to, well, you can look at the edge. It equates to probably about 3 to 4 millimeters thickness. Beautiful stitching. And again, we're not using a leather needle right now. We're using a Schmetz universal needle. Look at the thickness right there, you can see. Right around 4 to 5 ounces of leather. Spacing the formation is spot on. That's going to be a solid page 34. We come out and look at the totality of the stitching. Absolutely brag-worthy stitching that this 1908 Model 27 just laid down. Again, a machine that is about 113 years old, and this summer on July 21st it's going to become 114 years old. Pretty cool, huh? Let's take a look at that lock stitch. Look at that thickness again. Crazy. It's our lock stitch. Beautiful. And there's actually some parts, and it's partly the nap, but there's some parts where I can see a little bit of a compression of the stitch, which is telling me that I might have that upper tension turned up a little bit too high. It was doing a horrible job, especially with no take-up spring, but now that it's been fully restored and everything is perfectly calibrated, it might need to be toned back just a little bit. That is some serious thick leather. And yes, I just turned that using my hand. So totality of the stitching, absolutely a page 34, spot on. Looks really, really good. That's absolutely a brag-worthy stitch. Brag-worthy, brag-worthy, brag-worthy. Let me throw that to the rear. And I did not test this genuine elk hide on this Model 27 before this premiere, so I guess that shows either my foolhardiness or my level of confidence in what this machine is capable of doing. So throw that to the back. Now we're going to move into some protected full grain leather, this blue stuff. And again, protected full grain leather is going to have a special coating on it that protects it from staining. But along with protecting it from staining, it also galvanizes that surface and makes it more resistant to wear, not the carpeting. There we go. So this again is protected full grain leather. I forgot my camera angle was too low. It's a very, very tough leather. It's also a little bit slippery, so it can be a little bit of a challenge to get a quality stitch on this stuff because it tends to manipulate the stitching as you're trying to lay it down with that slippery surface. A lot like Italian leather. But we're going to give it a go. A single layer this, and look at the side, and right away you'll see why I'm happy to do a single layer, and I'm satisfied with that to test the stitching, because that's about 4 ounces thick. You can see it right there. And we're going to be going down it again with a non-leather needle, a Schmetz size 9014 universal needle. And we're using a very basic brand of Coats & Clark thread. It's kind of a dual duty type thread. Nothing fancy-pantsy about that. I'll kind of show you on the top here. So it's not a super high grade thread. It's just a basic thread. Where am I? There am I. It's a basic thread, but you know what? When you've got a machine running perfectly, it doesn't need to run on premium gas to run well. You know what I mean? So let's give this a try. And I did not test this protected full grain leather yet either, so I'm kind of rolling the dice a little bit here, but that's okay. Leather tends to leave little droppings. You guys have heard me say that before, so I'm kind of tidying things up a little bit. All right, let's give this a try. I didn't let go of that thread too soon. If I did, I'll have to tidy things up on the back again like I did before. Take a little peek and see how I did. Oh yeah, I actually did well. I released it at the right point. again, I'm going to swing it around. Yeah, if I were sewing a ton of leather, I would back off that upper tension just a little bit. I'm going to leave it the way it is for right now because we're right in the ballpark. But again, as I release the tension, I'm going to come out right to about there. Just remember to push this to take the pressure off of those discs, and then you can pull that thread out very, very easily. All right, so a single layer of protected full grain leather, right around 4 to 5 ounces of leather. And again, it's got that special coating on there to protect it from staining and give it more wearability. And we just sewed through it by hand, by me turning the balance wheel with no difficulty at all. And you know, all in all, I'm very happy with, let me get my hand off the camera. I'm very happy with the look of that stitching. Protecting, every leather is going to react differently to that needle when you're talking about a universal needle. If I didn't explain, a universal needle is designed with the point, the eye, the scarf of the needle so that it can manage a wide field of materials without having to swap out needles over and over again as you're making different transitions. So it's not a leather needle, but it's got some of those attributes of a leather needle. And that's how we're able to, so far we've sewn successfully genuine elk hide, we've sewn Italian leather, and now we've sewn protected full grain leather and laid down solid page 34, if not page 34 plus stitches. And the only thing I might do is just back off that upper tension a little bit to give a little bit more emphasis to that top stitch. You can see how it kind of fluctuates. We're spot on, and then it kind of backs off a little bit, and you lose a little bit of the stitch definition. We're not right there. Right there, it's spot on. But other places, you'll if you look real close, you'll be able to see the sign of that not being as centered as it should be. But all in all, beautiful stitching, beautiful stitching. Totality of the stitching on this protected full grain leather, solid page 34, if not a solid page 34 plus. Could not be any happier with it. I would just tweak that tension just ever so slightly and give even more pizzazz to that top stitch. Because when we flip it over, we're probably going to see that lock stitch is just minutely compressed a little bit again. And again, when you change between leathers, sometimes it'll be bang on. Sometimes you'll notice that it might need just a little bit of tweaking. That's because the grain and the composition of the leather varies. Also, depending on the piece that I end up cutting for the sew-off, depending on where that came from the hide, that also can impact how that stitch is going to present. This is our lock stitch. And obviously protected full grain has a lot more of an evident nap to it, doesn't it? But that lock stitch is just absolutely spot on. And then it disappeared. Oh, there it's back. The wonder of naps on leather, huh? Very, very impressed. Very impressed. Totality of the stitching, a little bit of a harder task when you're looking at a leather like this that has a real evident nap, but it's absolutely a gorgeous, gorgeous stitch. And again, protected full grain leather is one of the trickier leathers to work with because of that coating that's put on it. And yet this Model 27 did a spectacular job, even being turned by hand, of managing that tricky leather material. And it laid down an absolutely gorgeous top stitch and a lock stitch that, again, I would probably tweak ever so slightly to give it just a little bit more pizzazz. But beautiful stitching. So I'm going to throw this to the back as a pass as well. I'm trying to see what I have next. I've got another type of protected full grain leather, but it's got a little bit of a flatter nap. I think we'll do that one next. And then I've also got some saddle grade leather as well. As a matter of fact, I might do the saddle grade first. This is the other leather that I was going to do right here. It's also a type of protected full grain leather. It's just a little bit of a thinner cut, probably about 3 ounces. And it's got a different nap on the back. But I think we'll do the, I'll come out on the shot. You can actually see me crank it again for fun. I think I'll actually do the saddle grade leather next. Yep, I got my screen turned around. And the saddle grade, if you can't see it in the shot, I'll kind of hold it up to the camera. It's got a real evident nap on it. Very, very evident. So we may have a little bit of trouble seeing the stitching on this. All right, let's give this a go. When I'm turning this, I can feel the resistance of this saddle grade leather. This is tough stuff. Again, when I bring it around, I'm going to go ahead and release that tension by pushing this in. Advance that thread. And see, saddle grade leather, all of a sudden, I haven't made any adjustments to the tension at all. But now, because this grade of leather, it's a little softer, although it's still very difficult to get through. That top stitch looks absolutely bang on. And that's where it gets tricky as you're changing different types of leather. You might have to manipulate that tension just a little bit to get that sweet spot. I am loving this tune. I'm going to set that saddle grade right there and jump right into our last sew up because this is my groove. It's another type of protected full grain leather. Let's do this next. Oh, I thought I saw that where it released. We actually lost tension for a little bit there because I didn't have that take-up spring doing its job. So I'm going to redo that one. I'm going to set that to the side. I don't like that one. Got another piece right here that's also going to be protected, but it's going to be a different dye color. Let's give this one a go. This needle also might be getting a little bit tired too. Oh yeah, I managed that one a lot better. That one I did properly. Alright, we'll do these in order. I'll show you the saddle grade first. I don't think I have enough room to put them both on there. Maybe I do, actually. That'll be fun. Let's do both at the same time. Should be right about there. So this is the saddle grade leather that we're looking at first, and I was really impressed with how that tension stayed balanced sewing this leather, where we were a little bit weak on some of the other leathers that we sewed. Let's go across and look at these first. That is so solid, page 34 plus. So this leather is just as thick as the other leathers, but it's a little bit more supple. So it didn't make it as much of a challenge to maintain that top stitch. Totality of the stitching, it's absolutely gorgeous. Folks, that's about as good as it gets right there. This Model 27 from 1908 is in love with saddle grade leather. It's like bring it on all day long. And the tension is just absolutely bang on. The spacing, the formation, the integrity of that top stitch is exactly what we want to be seeing. If you're doing a product, your product is sold even before you get done with it when you're laying down stitching like this. Oh, let me go all the way across and then I'll flip it so you can look at the lock. Let's go ahead and look at that protected full grain leather, that second piece that I did first. And see, that played a little bit more havoc with the tension. We have a real solid page 34 stitch, but there's a couple weak points if you look at it very closely. Right there on the end. And then we got into a beautiful rhythm. Look at that. And that might also be the fact that this is the end of the stitch line, and this over here is the beginning of the stitch line, where I didn't have that thread. You know, again, you're going to hold that thread a little bit as you're launching. Maybe I didn't hold it quite enough, or with the right tension, so it's a little bit weaker. It's hard to say. A billy goat? I thought she was going to buy her an artichoke. So I'm just going to take my hand off the camera for a second and just say that I'm incredibly impressed with how this Model 27 is managing a wide field of different leathers using a non-leather needle, and I would almost say sub-grade dual duty type Coats and Cark thread. It's not a bad thread, but it's definitely not a premium thread. And yet this Model 27 is just knocking it out of the park and managing this well, laying down beautiful stitching. Now we'll come out on the shot and flip these over and look at that lock stitch. Grover. Mom's gonna buy a horse and cart. Some of the lyrics for these songs they just cause you to scratch your head a little bit, don't they? They do me. Maybe I'm not sophisticated enough. All right, let's take a look at this lock stitching. First of all, in the saddle grade leather, and then we'll move over to the protected full grain leather. Pause right there. Wow. Absolutely fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. Totality of the stitching on that lock stitch there on that saddle grade leather. Folks, it don't get no better than that. That's absolutely as it should be. Gorgeous, gorgeous stitching. And again, saddle grade leather is more supple, but it's no easier to get through, especially not with a non-leather needle and sub-grade thread. And look at what we laid down. That's the lock stitch. Go over to that protected full grain leather. Unbelievable. Pause right there. Humpty Dumpty, I'm telling you one thing, man. You might fall off that. We're going to make it right here in the workshop for you. We're going to put you back together. Well, they couldn't do it, but we can here in the workshop. Right, Dr. Singer? We got you. We got you, Humpty Dumpty. So that's a gorgeous lock stitch there too, folks. It speaks for itself. Totality of the stitching on that lock stitch for the protected full grain leather, 10 out of 10. That's a solid page 34 plus. Absolutely gorgeous. Saddle grade leather, 10 out of 10, page 34 plus. Absolutely gorgeous stitching, folks. Both of those, as we wrap up these sew-offs for this machine, I could not be any more impressed with how this Model 27, it's not just a good looker. She is a gorgeous, gorgeous stitcher too. Yes, she is. Wow. Wow. So what do we sew on this machine during this live premiere? And I know we're not going to go quite as extensive as we sometimes do, but here we got some protected full grain leather. Gorgeous 10 out of 10, page 34 plus stitching. Genuine elk hide, about 5 ounces of chemically processed leather, ridiculously difficult to get through. Cranked it off with my finger and got a page 34 plus. Got this Italian leather. Yeah, that's Italian. Absolutely page 34 plus stitching on that too. Did that again right here on some protected full grain leather. They're almost dyed exactly the same. Gorgeous stitching. And last but certainly not least, saddle grade leather. Absolutely spot on. A real small sew-off sandwich by our standards, but a sew-off sandwich nonetheless, considering I'm powering this machine either by my finger or by my hand. And we knocked it out of the park on this stitching. Just gorgeous, gorgeous stitching. I wanted to show you guys a couple other things before we wrap this up. And since I'm done sewing with this gorgeous machine, I'm actually going to carefully lift it up and move it to the rear. it back a little bit there. So I've got a little bit of a workspace right here. I'm going to show you guys a couple of things. This is fun. So on any bobbin case, whether it's a long shuttle like this or whether it's more of a standard bobbin case, you got to do maintenance on that too, folks. You got to do maintenance on it. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. Kind of come in right over here towards that tray. Coming even closer. So this is an identical long shuttle bobbin to the one that's in the machine right now. This is designed for a Model 27 or 127. Now what I'm going to show you is that I've taken the tension spring off of it. I'm actually going to put the tension spring right in front, try to get it in the shot. Let's see there. There we go. That's pretty good, I think, right there. And what I want you to hopefully be able to see is that it's filthy right now. You can kind of see that on the edge of there. There's all kinds of buildup that works its way underneath that tension spring that regulates stitch quality for the top stitch. That's what this bobbin vibrating shuttle is going to do, is it's going to be pulling down to define that top stitch. And right now it's filthy, so it's going to struggle with doing its job, to say the least, as dirty as it is. Now what I use is a diluted isopropyl alcohol, which is a fancy word for rubbing alcohol. And I'll put on some other music to do this. And it's okay for using occasionally on chromed surfaces. You don't want to be using it all the time because it can eventually damage the chrome, or the chromium as it would be referred to, I guess. So once I've taken this band off, this one right here, and it's held on by a teeny, well, not as small of a screw as I showed recently for that upper tension of the 401A, but this is still a pretty teeny tiny screw, and that's why I'm using my magnetic tray so I don't lose it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this solution that I've got diluted a little bit. It's not pure rubbing alcohol, it's diluted. Put a couple drops on the end of the Q-tip swab. And I'm going to wipe over, especially this surface right here, where that band is going to go back onto, because the thread's going to be trying to run underneath there. It's going to be trying to run underneath there. And you can see what's happening to my Q-tip swab already. You see that in the shot? That was all underneath that that pressure band that regulates the upper tension. So now that we have that nice and clean, the only other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a little pipe cleaner thing. It's actually used in the dental field. It's actually used in the dental field for flossing. And on the top of this long shuttle, there's an opening right there that the thread's going to be coming out of. I'm going to go into that with this and clean those edges as well. So if there's anything that's
kind of sticky on there or something that's going to be grabbing that thread, we're going to be breaking that free, getting that nice and clean. Same thing over here. Over here. Now if you can see it in the shot, look at all the stuff on there now. And we're not going to get this as perfect as I would get it if I were going to be putting it into this machine that I'm sending to Ross. That one I spent a lot of time. I'm giving you the high points on it. And you're also going to be swabbing the inside of this as well, where that long bobbin is going to be going, that barbell bobbin is going to be going into. You're going to be cleaning that as well. And just gently swabbing over it. I've already gotten a bunch of junk off of it, but I would clean it a lot more thoroughly. What I'm reaching for now is a little screwdriver, because I'm going to be putting this long bobbin back together, and then I'm going to show you how to thread it so that we've got that out of the way as well. Let me check my shot here. Oh, these are filthy. I was going to use I like using my magnifiers when I'm working on the shuttles and trying to really see that dirt at a low level, or at a high level, I should say. And these aren't going to help me right now, as dirty as they are. And I always clean these again once I'm done with them. Once I'm done with these, I'll clean them. I'm not going to clean them right now, because you know what clean looks like. And we don't need to do that together. You also want to clean this this band as well, both sides of it. So we're going to do that as well with some of that solution and with a Q-tip swab. And if you get something that, if you get varnishing that's really stuck on there hard, you might have to use something a little bit more abrasive to get this off. Possibly a dental tool would work real nicely, but you want to get it nice and clean. And again, I would spend a lot more time on this if I were going to put it into this machine that we just did the sewing on. Alright, so I've done a decent job of swabbing that off. That actually wasn't horrible as far as cleanliness. There we go. So now let's put it back together. That's still not as clean as I want it. Give me a second here. Even though I'm not going to be using it, it bugs me a little bit, so. Okay, so when you're putting this band back in, there's going to be two little prongs. Kind of hold them up to the camera. Oops. I guess I can't hold them up to the camera. I'll hold them up down here. There's two little prongs. You can see right there in the shot. they're going to have to go into the matching side of the long shuttle, which is going to be on the end that opens right there. You just kind of, we have to wiggle them in a little bit, because these prongs have a little bit of a bend to them. So you have to kind of wiggle it in and get them into position, like so. And then maintain pressure, because this is kind of spring loaded right now with that band having a contour to it. So you have to kind of hold it down into place. I usually kind of hold it like that so it doesn't wiggle on me. Then grab your little screw. You put it into the end right over here. You can see it in the shot. And as you're screwing it in, get it threaded. I usually will put a little bit of machine oil on the thread so that it feeds even more easily into there. Where's my machine? There it is. I'll put just a little dab on there. Just a tiny little dab. And as you screw it in, it'll work its way down the threads. Now I've gotten it threaded now, so I don't have to hold that band down anymore. As you screw this down, remember that this is your adjusting screw. This is your adjusting screw to increase or decrease the pull down to define those top stitches. So you want to screw it down a certain distance, but you don't want to ratchet it all the way down. Otherwise, you're going to have to crank your upper tension all the way up to the max to try to balance it. Does that make sense? So we want to screw it down a certain distance. I'll get it down to the distance that I would normally stop at. And then I'll show you what that looks like. You just don't want to go too far down, because then you're going to have to crank your upper tension way up to try to get it balanced. Just trying to get it centered on the shot there. And when you put this into the machine, this is going to be facing up, so that's where I would stop right there. But if all of a sudden I do a stitch off and that top stitch looks just really, really weak, and I even back off the upper tension, but then I start to lose my lock stitch, right? Then I'm gonna open up that slide plate, and I'm gonna give this about a millimeter turn at a time. Turn it about a millimeter. You can see where it's at right now. I'm gonna turn it, it's at the 12 o'clock position. I'm going to turn it kind of between the 1 and 2 position, right about there. And then I'm going to do another stitch off and see how that top stitch looks. Because I don't want to back off that upper tension too much, or I'm going to lose my lock stitch, right? So I just keep increasing it until I get that sweet balance where my top stitch looks spot on, my lock stitch is still nicely defined, and then stop right there, okay? So now we've got this all cleaned up. Not quite to my standard, but it'll pass for illustration right now at least. Then I'm going to take my long bobbin, my barbell bobbin, which is this right here, and this is obviously not threaded perfectly right now, but for our purposes it'll work. And when you drop it in, you want to have that thread, coming from behind as it's going to go into the long shuttle, okay? So as it's turning, if you're looking down at it, as it's turning, it's going to be turning counterclockwise. Right now I'm going to take the shuttle like this, look for that little slat which is right there. I'm going to have that thread coming from behind. I'm going to drop my long bobbin in. Then I'm going to get my thread into the slat. See, it's in that slat right there. I'm going to use my finger to hold that long bobbin from the top so it can't turn, okay? I'm going to bring that thread down. Going to bring it all the way to the bottom, and then you bring it back after you pull it all the way to the bottom, you start to bring it back up. And you're going to notice that it's actually now going in a track that's down the middle. So I'm going to bring that all the way up. I'm still holding that long bobbin on top so it doesn't spin. And now I've got that thread all the way underneath that pressure band that we just tightened down. And now all you're going to do is you're going to put that into that carriage in the machine just like this. Slide it all the way into place. Do your stitching, see what you have to adjust, and then you're good to go. And to rewind a little bit, right now with the thread across the top, that's all you have to do is when you put it into the machine, you're going to rotate your balance wheel towards you just like you normally would, holding that rear thread that's coming off of the needle, and it'll pick this thread up automatically and pull it up through the throat plate. Just like you would with any other machine. Okay? And then just bring that thread to the rear and you're ready to start testing that tension to see how your balance is. Now, the bobbin that I showed you that I just put inside of here is going to be an original long bobbin, an original barbell bobbin. This is a replacement that you can buy on eBay. You can buy it in a variety of different places. You're going to notice straight away, and I'll actually take it back out to show you. And this is where going with original is always going to get you closer to the mark, because did you see that? It's kind of fun. Oh, look at that! Look at Mom! Oh, he's got me! He's got me! Oh! Let go there, magnetic tray. You're doing a great job. You're doing a great job. So what I wanted to show you is the original long bobbin compared to the replacement that they recommend for the Model 27. You kind of look at them. Let me go back further. You kind of look at them side by side. Wait a second. Let's try that again. I've got my magnifiers on right now too, so it's not making it any easier to see. So they're going to be generally about the same height, but the way that they're set up is different. This one on the right, the original, is going to have a longer shaft, and that's going to make up the height difference. And even with that shaft, it's going to make it a little bit higher profile than the other one if you look at it real closely. Where this one makes up for it, it's got a little stem on the end that sticks up higher than the original. So when all is said and done, either one will work, but I always try to go original when I can. And because it's set up a little bit differently, if I kind of move my hand out of the way, you can see them side by side. They're going to present differently. Let me see if I can lower my hand a little bit more. They're just a little bit different, you know what I mean? One was made back in the 1900s, the other one was made probably in the 1970s or 80s, or 90s. So the specs are not going to be a direct match. And if I zoom in real close, let me see if I can zoom in real close. You can see even the ends are different the way they're set up. The circumference of the riding base that spins inside of the long shuttle. Which way am I going? That way. That way. See that? But this is an acceptable. Wait, I'm pointing on the wrong side. This is an acceptable replacement if you don't have access to an original, like the one on the right. But you can see right away the profiles are going to be close, but they're different. The circumference of this spin-up section right here that rests inside of the long shuttle is going to be different. So they're going to perform differently, right? They're not identical. So I just thought I'd show that to you just so you could see the difference between the two. The one that has thread on it is an original. Where is it? The one that has thread on it is original. The one on the other side on the left is an aftermarket. So there you go. feel like I'm doing a coordination test and I'm failing right now. Look at Mom, I can do it. Look at Mom. All right, that's enough of that. I'll drive you guys nuts. So I'll show you one more time how to thread it. I'll come out on this shot just a little bit. So again, you're gonna have the thread coming from behind. See how it's coming from behind? We're gonna drop it into the shuttle. Bring that thread into that slat. Hold that top long bobbin with your fingers so that it can't rotate. Draw that thread all the way down to the bottom. Draw that thread all the way down to the bottom. So that's going to go into that center slat. Start to bring that thread back up. And you got to pull it with a little bit of pressure so that it gets all the way underneath that tension band. There we go. You could actually, you probably couldn't hear it, but I could hear it here. You can actually hear it kind of pop into place. And then again, you're just going to take this vibrating shuttle. You're going to place it into that carriage in the machine just like you see it right now. Rotate that balance wheel while you're holding the other thread coming off the needle. Pull this thread up from the long shuttle. And then start your process of fine-tuning that tension. And again, depending on the thread you're using, depending on the needle you're using, you might have to do a little bit more adjusting. So that's it. Hopefully that's helpful, giving you some pointers on that. And if you're real bored right now, you want to see me with my magnifiers on? Where am I? There I am. So. But this was a very long but worthwhile project. I know Ross is already, as my customer, my master woodworker, has already seen still shots of this, but now he has a chance to actually see his customer's machine that I prepared for him to present to them. Gets real confusing, right? Who's on first, what's on second? I don't know who's on third. Because I'm used to usually dealing just with a customer. That's it. Now I've got two customers. But I know this is going to be really exciting for him to see the machine actually sewing. And then when he gets it down in Texas, he'll get it into his table and then be able to bring his customer in and show him or her the finished product of the machine and the cabinet, which I know they're just going to complement each other beautifully. And then he'll be able to celebrate the ending of a project that's run several months. And I'll be able to celebrate getting this machine down to Texas and saying, all right, I'm moving on. What's my next project? Kind of where I'm at this point. So, oh, I almost missed showing you one thing. I almost goofed up. It happens sometimes. Let me move some of these things out of the way. What I wanted to show you is next to this 27, I'll kind of turn it like that. Next to this gorgeous 27, I wanted to show you a 128, which is oftentimes mistaken initially when someone says, hey, I think I've got a 128, but they actually have a 27. Or, hey, I think I've got a 27, but they actually have a 127. I wanted to at least show you a 128 that's also in the workshop right now, that's in for servicing. I'm not going to do a lot with the paint on it. I'm just going to do a general cleanup on it. But I'll show you this 28 so you can kind of see them side by side. Take off this tag as well, temporarily. So this is a Singer 128, excuse me. This is a Singer 128. And you can see right away, if you're looking at them side by side, the 128 is going to share a lot of the same attributes has this 27.
But you can see right away that the 128 is noticeably smaller. It's only a 3/4 size machine, like a 99 or a 99K or a Spartan, a 192K. It's a 3/4 size version, but a lot of the same other attributes are going to be the same. This one is also going to be a vibrating shuttle setup. It's going to have the same needle feed dog plate. It's going to have a similar upper tension, but it doesn't have that release because it doesn't. It's just a different upper tension. It's going to have the same little access panel here. It's going to have a similar bobbin winding assembly, but you can notice here that it's mounted up instead of mounted down. A little bit smaller balance wheel. And this one has obviously been set up with a motor. It's electrified. So, but the easiest way to remember it is that the 27 was the first in this series that came out. Then followed the 127, and in that window of time between the 27 and the 127, on the scene came the 128. That was a 3/4 size answer to providing a similar machine. Make sense? Yeah, I think so. Hopefully. But I don't want this 128 to steal the attention of this 27 right now, so I'm going to move it out of the way. As cool as this 128 is, and I got these little pads underneath the pedestal feet to keep this from slipping. This one came out, obviously. So I just have to remember to pack all these other things with it. These are the sew-offs I did off camera on this same needle as I was trying to get things settled with the machine. So that's where I was saying that needle might be getting a little bit tired. All right, well that's it, folks. Go ahead and wipe this bed off a little bit and let this beautiful song play out as you look on and admire this beautiful machine that is going to be heading towards Shiner, Texas. Shiner, Texas. Down to my friend Ross, that's going to be putting it into the table that he prepared. Yeah. Thanks for watching. Thanks for your involvement and encouragement. Hopefully you stepped out of the shadows and had a chance to make remarks about this gorgeous machine that I just had a chance to restore. Yeah. All right. Take care, everybody. God bless you.